Good morning, everyone, especially to our professor, Dr. Dayaw. My name is RIO Francia, and I will be reporting on audiolingual method. Richards and Rogers of 2001 provide one of the most thorough description of the historical background of the audiolingual method, from which the following information has largely been drawn. Audiolingualism came about as a result of a number of developments in linguistics, psychology, and politics. In the 1940s, linguists at the University of Michigan and other universities were engaged in developing materials for teaching English to foreign students studying in the United States. Their approach, based on structural linguistics, relied on contrastive analysis of the student's native language and the target language, which they believed would identify potential problems in language learning. At approximately the same time, the United States was drawn into World War II and needed personnel who were fluent in foreign languages. Upon finding lack of Americans with sufficient language skills, in 1942, the United States government developed the Army Specialized Training Program. This is an oral-based program based on intensive drilling and study. The success of this program convinced a number of prominent linguists of the value of an intensive oral approach to language learning. Most American schools and universities, however, continued to employ the grammar translation method, or the lessons consisted of intensive oral drilling of grammatical patterns and pronunciations. In 1957, Russia launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, causing the US government to become concerned about Americans' isolation from scientific advances in foreign countries due to their lack of proficiency in foreign languages. The National Defense Education Act of 1958 provided funds for developing foreign language teaching materials and training teachers and language teaching specialists set about developing new teaching methods. They drew upon the earlier structural approach and the Army program, as well as on principles of behaviorist psychology. The new approach, which Yale professor Nelson Brooks dubbed audiolingual, claimed to have transformed language teaching into a science. The audiolingual method was widely adopted in the United States and Canada and served as the principal approach to foreign language teaching in the 1960s. The method's decline in the late 1960s and early 1970s was brought about by two factors. These developments led to eventual abandonment of the method, although some of its practices, such as dialogue learning and pattern drills, continue to be used in some foreign language programs. The audiolingual approach to language teaching has a lot of similarities with the direct method. Both were considered as a reaction against the shortcomings of the grammar translation method. Both reject the use of mother tongue, and both stress that speaking and listening competences preceded reading and writing competences. But there are also some differences. The direct method highlighted the teaching of vocabulary, while the audiolingual approach focused on grammar drills. Audiolingualism views language as a set of structures, including phonemes, morphemes, and syntax, the patterns of which can be deduced by analyzing the language used by native speakers. The audiolingual syllabus is organized around these linguistic structures, which are represented in dialogues and pattern drills. A second tenet or belief of audiolingualism is that language is primarily an oral phenomenon, inasmuch as all natural languages first developed orally, and children learn their first language orally before learning its written form. Thus, the audiolingual method teaches listening and speaking before reading and writing. Exposing beginning students to the written language is avoided in the belief that seeing the written word interferes with the developing correct pronunciation habits. Reading and writing are introduced later and consist primarily of materials that was first learned orally. The learning theory underlying the audiolingual method is behaviorism, a prominent school of psychological thought in the first half of the 20th century. Behaviorism posits that all learning occurs as humans respond to external stimuli, and their response is either rewarded or punished, which serves to increase or decrease the behavior. Psychologist B.F. Skinner, in his 1957 book Verbal Behavior, included language among the behaviors that are learned through this type of conditioning. Brooks of 1964 explained how behaviorist theory was to be applied in the classroom, with teachers providing linguistic stimuli in the form of dialogues and drills, reinforcing students' correct responses and correcting their errors. Brooks summarized the application of behaviorist theory to language learning as follows. The single paramount fact about language learning is that it concerns not problem solving, but the formation and performance of habits. Behaviorism is a philosophy of psychology based on the propositions that all things which organisms do, including acting, thinking, and feeling, can and should be regarded as behaviors. It contends that learning occurs through associations, habit formation, and reinforcement. When the learner produces the desired behavior and is reinforced positively, it is likely that behavior be imitated again. The objective of the audiolingual method is accurate pronunciation and grammar, the ability to respond quickly and accurately in speech situations, and knowledge of sufficient vocabulary to use with the grammar patterns. Particular emphasis was laid on mastering the building blocks of language and learning the rules for combining them. It was believed that learning structure or grammar was the starting point for the student. Students are discouraged from using language to create their own meaning due to the potential for making errors, which may potentially become ingrained habits. This is RIO Francia. Thank you for listening. The continuation of our report, which is the audiolingual method classroom activities, will be given to you by my partner, Michelle F. Deloriel.